Chapter 1069, Under the Sea. The leg-gnawing giant, whose vertical eye was filled with blood-red threads, wasn't actually real. He was, in essence, a strong emotion produced by a particular living creature. The emotions that originated from having a deep impression had entered the subconscious. It spread from one's island of consciousness to the surrounding illusory sea, before slowly settling and forming a mark. It wasn't possible for all of its emotions and consciousness to ultimately settle down as the foundation. Most of them would be washed away with time by the seawater. Only extremely intense and repeated experiences would remain. And once it formed a mark, it would be a drop of water in the sea of collective subconscious, which would then affect living creatures of the same species in its surroundings. It would be a shared, ancient memory carved into one's pulse. Therefore, not only was the phantom image of the giant blurry, but it also had many mistakes caused by the subjective aspects of the mind. Normally, it wouldn't result in Leonard and Audrey being unable to look straight at it, confusing their spirituality and breaking down their minds. However, the madness that came with it, an extreme sense of horror that stemmed from an unknown person, seemed all so real. It could contaminate every living creature's body of heart and mind, astral projection, and even soul body. This was the essence of the danger in the sea of collective subconscious. It didn't stem from the strength, level, and status itself, but from the emotions and feelings that were generated and imprinted there. Of course, if one were to encounter a mark left behind by a high-level creature or deity, they could directly see some type or multiple types of mythical creature forms. However, the result was definitely nothing rosy. One would either have a mental breakdown or go crazy. Otherwise, they would be completely contaminated by the deity or high-level creature's emotions and feelings. Their outcome would ultimately be completely unpredictable. All in all, in this sea of collective subconscious, the style of combat was different from the outside world. Sometimes, the more anxious one was at trying to destroy the illusory figure, the more likely one would be contaminated by their stirring emotions. It was precisely because of this that, when Klein saw the 7-8-meter-tall, grayish-blue giant rush over, he immediately took the initiative to control his emotions. Then he used illusion creation. The target of illusion creation was Leonard and Audrey. In the eyes of these two Sequence 5 Beyonders, those two 3-story tall giants no longer had the madness and violence that left one trembling from one's heart. Everything seemed normal and ordinary. Therefore, before those extreme feelings could truly contaminate them, Leonard and Audrey remained very calm, without showing any emotional fluctuations. Then, with one hand in his pocket, Leonard reached out with his right hand and slightly opened his mouth. Having become a spirit warlock, he originally wanted to use the first spirit, a terror banshee, that he sealed in his tooth with the help of the archbishop. It was a powerful spirit world creature with a beautiful face and rotting body. It had a pair of huge eagle wings and was good at draining the consciousness of others, injecting feelings of terror in them. However, he quickly remembered that not only was he in an astral projection form, but he had also been cleansed by the gray fog. How could there be other spirits still on him? He had no choice but to use a soul assurer's powers, turning his green eyes deep and quiet. The giant shadow instantly slowed down, as if it was soothed. At this moment, Audrey calmly spread her arms wide and used placate. An invisible wind blew past, and the giant figure seemed to pause as it instantly weakened the contamination around it. During this process, Klein took out the bronze cross that had many sharp spikes. As he opened the bottle containing his blood, he poured a few drops onto it and solemnly said, "Light." Brilliant, pure, and flawless light burst out, and amidst Klein's fluttering black trench coat, the giant phantom was drowned by the light. The grayish-blue giant melted away almost immediately. One of the main powers of the unshadowed crucifix was to cleanse and purify lingering spiritual imprints. This was the reason why Klein brought this sealed artifact along. And when he used the cross from the ancient sun god, Klein dispelled the illusion, allowing the star Leonard and Justice Audrey to see the true appearance of the giant to enrich their experiences in such matters. Although it didn't even take a second before the giant phantom was drowned by the endless light, Audrey and Leonard still felt dizzy. Irresistible sense of fear surged from deep within their hearts, and they almost broke down. This state didn't last too long, as Audrey instinctively used placate to calm her emotions before treating Mr. Star and Mr. World's psychological problems one by one. How scary, is this a giant at the demigod level? When the light dissipated, Audrey looked around and sighed. In that instant, she had a deeper understanding of the sentence. Do not look directly at God. Even at the saint level, the remnant impression a demigod leaves behind in a memory can't be seen directly, let alone a real deity. Leonard was also experienced. He laughed self-deprecatingly and said, Sequence 4 is indeed a qualitative change in life's natural order. However, that wasn't very scary. It wasn't as intense as when I was facing a pregnant woman. Is the essence of a poet to boast. At that time, you could still control yourself, but you were almost on the verge of breaking down just now. However, if Megos gave birth to that child, we would probably lose control and turn into monsters just by looking at her. As Klein lampooned Leonard, it stirred up some memories as he sighed poignantly. Was that pregnant lady a demigod? Audrey asked curiously. No, Leonard shook his head, but she was pregnant with an evil god's spawn. Is that so? Audrey didn't ask further. She knew very well that the adventure and exploration hadn't ended, and that wasting time wasn't an option. She then looked at Jayaman Sparrow, who was wearing a black trench coat and holding a bronze cross and small metal bottle, and said with a smile, Thank you for affecting our senses. Where should we go next? As an experienced spectator, it wasn't difficult to determine the fact that she had received Mr. World's help from making a comparison. Klein controlled himself from subconsciously furrowing his brows, and he looked around. Doesn't this sea of collective subconscious have a core region to it? No, Audrey shook her head seriously. Wherever there are living beings, there's a sea of subconscious. There's no such thing as someone who's more important and lofty. This illusory sea won't really stir, and the situations within the different areas will depend on their actual surroundings. We call it a precipitating effect. To put it simply, the sea of collective subconscious of Lone will be quite different from Inti's because it precipitates the strong emotions and feelings of generations of Lonees. In contrast, this will also affect the citizens of both countries, making them have different qualities and personalities to a certain extent. After explaining this a little, Audrey concluded, If that's the case, how can there be a general consensus of a core within the sea of collective subconscious? Klein nodded and asked thoughtfully, In other words, you can't give any effective suggestions on where to go. Mr. World is so direct. If it were another lady or gentleman with a more fragile heart, they would definitely be embarrassed and feel hurt. As the thought flashed through her mind, Audrey saw the World's pair of deep, brown eyes which were nearly black in color. They were in no way crazy or cold. Instead, they were calm and tranquil. This, Audrey instantly came to a realization. She realized that Mr. World was doing such things on purpose so that she could experience the various problems within the details of a joint operation, allowing her to gain more experience. Yes, she nodded frankly, not feeling embarrassed at all. Klein secretly nodded and looked at the star Leonard. Don't look at me. My expertise isn't in the strange sea of collective subconscious. Leonard immediately waved his hands. Compared to Miss Justice, having participated in countless operations, he knew that he shouldn't force it when he shouldn't. Then follow me. Klein looked away and moved the unshadowed crucifix which had turned bronze again to the hand holding the metal bottle, and he took out a gold coin. Ding! As the gold coin tumbled, he grabbed it without looking at the results. He looked in a direction and widened his stride. This is a divination technique. Audrey was enlightened. She looked at the World's serious and calm side profile, black trench coat, silk top hat, and bronze cross. For some reason, she felt like the other party was a preacher. Leonard suddenly recalled something from the past. It was the first case he had worked with Klein to find a kidnapped child. At that time, it was also a way for Klein to lead the way through divination. He had been beside him the entire time. Compared to his awkwardness before, it seems as if he had entered the mysterious world for more than 10 years now. Sigh, it's only been over a year. Leonard placed his hands in his pockets as he followed closely behind Klein. Audrey glanced at him and felt the change in his mood. Mr. Star and Mr. World not only know each other in real life, but they were probably rather close friends. Yes, they have at least met frequently in the past 1 to 2 years. As she made the judgment, she didn't slow down her steps. Combining what she had learned, she observed the surroundings and identified which spots might hide maelstroms and dangerous creatures. With her help, Klein's lead went very smoothly. It was nothing like how they had directly encountered a mark like the giant phantom. Occasionally, they would walk straight and turn at other times. After some time, the area before the trio suddenly opened up. In front of them was a huge crater in the deep sea. In the middle of the pit was an island-sized city. The foundation of the city was grayish-white in color, and on it were several hundred-meter tall, magnificent stone columns. They either stood there on their own, or they held up majestic ancient palaces together. They were bizarre and magnificent, unlike something built by ordinary creatures. Although Audrey didn't know the city, an idea instantly appeared in her mind. City of Miracles, Liveside,